as a parent, changing schools and finding the right school is an important decision to make. It's a hard decision for parents to make. And I think, oftentimes you overthink it sometimes, or you're scared to make the jump. But for me, this was probably one of the best decisions that I made.
Rommy Alpinelli was heartbroken. Every day, she was watching her daughter struggle through homework and cry out against going to school. As an educator herself, Rommy knew this was a recipe for getting left behind. In the end, that's what led Rommy, her daughter and her son, to Kingsley School. Kingsley School, in Etobicoke, Ontario, in Toronto's West End, serves kids from the toddler years through to grade 5. And as Rommy shared with me, it proved the perfect fit for delivering just the kind of attention and environment her kids needed to love learning once again. Rommy, would you tell me about your kids and who they are?
So I have my daughter Melania, who's 9 years old, and I have a son whose name is Milan, and he's going into senior kindergarten. He's 5.
And how long have they been at Kingsley?
So Milan started at Kingsley in pre-K, so he's done 2 years there. And Melania started in grade 3, sorry. So she's also been there for 2 years.
And who are they like? Who are they as students?
Milan so my youngest is pretty shy. So he's very interested in learning different things, because he really likes to take on projects. And Melania, she was kind of struggling in the school that she was at before we attended Kingsley. She's a December baby, so she was the youngest in the class, and her self-esteem, I saw, was diminishing a lot, just from I think feeling always the youngest, a little further behind than everybody else. So now she's a completely different student. I mean, she's bubbly and loves to go to school, and she enjoys doing everything. Like, there's nothing she doesn't enjoy. She enjoys math, she enjoys science, she enjoys art, and she's a dancer and a singer, so animated.
So lots of energy and comfortable in the spotlight.
Absolutely. My son is more chill. He likes to just relax. He likes to do things, slowly, transition slowly from one activity to another. So they're definitely different learners. So
tell me about 2 years ago, or even prior to that, the moment that first led you to Kingsley. What was happening in your life as a family? Was it a natural moment of transition, or a problem that you were trying to solve? Where were you at?
Yeah, I would say that we were, Melania was struggling at school, and she was crying every day that she didn't want to go to school. And I was at odds, because I wasn't sure what was causing that. And she would just say that she always felt that she wasn't the smartest kid in the class. And she was just feeling really down, and her self-esteem was really down. So she was struggling, and the teacher kept telling me that she was struggling. So I felt that we needed to make a change for her. And I just wasn't sure at the time what the right move was. So I began looking at my options for private in the school, in Etobicoke. And I found Kingsley through mutual friends that basically had their dog, so a friend of mine's friend, or colleague really, her daughter attended Kingsley, and she had rave reviews about it. So I said, okay, well, maybe we'll try it. So she's, she was a principal of a school in the Toronto board at the time. So I thought, okay, if her daughter attends there, then it must be a good school. So that helped make the decision easier. And
So
then
this
Melania
wasn't
went,
just a recommendation from a friend. This was a friend who's an educator.
yes, that's correct. I'm an educator as well.
Is that right?
Yes.
So when you were there, with your educator hat on and you were dealing with, your kid who's coming home crying, doesn't want to go to school, what were you thinking with your educator hat on that may have been different from your parent hat?
From an educator point of view, I was worried that because she wasn't interested in going to school, I knew she'd be shut off at school, because I know that that's what happens to kids who don't want to be there. Is that a lot of the times they stop paying attention, they're not engaged, so they're essentially not learning. And she was at such a young age where those are vital years, because they're learning how to read and they're learning, core math principles and all these big, transition points for them educationally that were so important. And I felt that she wasn't getting what she needed. It wasn't going to be enough. So I started worrying about her, and her teachers were sort of confirming that this is what was in fact happening. So, but they kept reassuring me that it's also her age, because she was the youngest in the class, that she would naturally struggle more in the beginning years. For me, the fear as a parent became more about a love of learning as opposed to what level she was at. So for me, I wanted my daughter to be happy going to school. I didn't want to see her crying every day. I didn't want to leave with a heavy heart every day, dropping her off at school crying. So I said, we have to try something else, maybe it's just too many kids in the class. Maybe it's, she just needs more one-on-one to catch her up. So for me, that was really the core of my struggle with her, was that her age, she was young, the youngest one in the class. And so the youngest ones sometimes do tend to struggle more than the kids that are almost a full year older than her in the same classroom, right? So she's not putting up her hand to answer questions, and she's not, so she feels that she's not as smart as everybody else. So then there was self-esteem issues too.
What does that do for you, like on a family level, on an emotional level, when there's crying before and after school, when there's all that self-doubt and all this fear for the future? Like, what does that do for your family, your home, and what you were going through?
I mean, it was tough. It was a tough, that her grade 1 and grade 2 for her were so tough that it was tough on all of us, because we felt that we were failing her. We weren't sure what to do. She's so little and she's so unhappy. And why is she so unhappy? The school she was at was a good school. It's ranked as #1 really in Etobicoke. So I wasn't understanding why we were having such a challenge with her. And then there wasn't a lot that the school board could do as far as extra help for her. So I was tutoring her on the side. And I mean, I'm an educator, so I'm thinking I could do this. I teach high school. My kids are, much younger, so it's a different level of education. So it was like beginning reading was a bit of a challenge for me. Essentially, in the beginning, I had no idea how to teach my child how to begin read, because she wasn't getting it. And I couldn't understand how to do better by her. I couldn't figure it out. And eventually I became a very good beginning reader teacher, but it wasn't enough. I felt like she's spending 7 hours a day in a school, and she's essentially not getting anything from it. And her teachers kept confirming that to me. Like, she's not tuned in, she's not caring. And I said, yeah, because you guys are over here and she's over here. She doesn't get it. She's not catching up like this. So I think that for me was the biggest thing, was she's behind and she's never going to catch up at this rate, because you're still plowing through and she's all the way back here. So that's when I said, okay, maybe if we change her, it'll help her catch up.
So with all that in mind, now that you had identified that there was a problem and you needed to find a solution, what were you looking for in particular?
I was looking for a school that had a very small classroom size. That for me was #1. And I went to other privates and they said they had up to 20 kids in the class. And I said, well, essentially the same situation we're in right now. And I just wanted her to have more one-on-one sort of learning, small group learning, somewhere where she would be seen as a student, as opposed to just another number that, you know, is scared to put her hand up and volunteer. Now, you know, in a smaller setting, I felt that she would be able to be called on and to, you know, be part of sort of the class and be involved, you know, in the day-to-day discussions, and it worked. It worked for her, that's for sure.
So let's fast forward to, you know, you've had this recommendation from your friend who's a principal, and you've heard now Kingsley's on your radar. What was your first impression of the place once you walked through the doors?
So my first impression was, you know, I was like, okay, it seems quite small, which of course it's a small school, so it made sense. But I was like, okay, let's see. I mean, the staff was wonderful. They're all very friendly, which was another thing that was very important to me. I wanted my kids to feel that they were essentially at another home for them, you know, that it felt like safe and that they felt cared for and seen. So I got that impression right away from, you know, from the director to the staff. Everybody was so nice and friendly and welcoming to the kids. So that was sort of my first impression.
In emotional terms, what was your first impression in terms of feelings?
I was scared. I was worried. Was I making the right decision? I'm taking her away from her friends that she had already known at her other school for so long. She had already been at the other school for 4 years. So I was worried. I was worried that if I was making the right decision for her. And yeah, I would say that was my biggest fear.
Is there a moment in your mind, a memory of a time of the moment where your fears were put at ease, where you witnessed something, experienced something like, okay, this might work?
Well, truthfully, she went in for a trial period where she was just welcome to just partake in the class, but she wasn't really in the class. It was one of her PA days from her other school. We took her there just to try it out to see if she liked the environment. And when I went to go pick her up, she was so excited. And so I said, okay, well, she's like, Mommy, I love it here. And I said, okay, but why? Because I'm thinking if you weren't doing anything all day, that could be why you love it. And she said, it's so quiet, I could think. And I said, oh, okay. It actually surprised me that I didn't expect that answer from her. And she's like, yeah, like we can, teacher talks and you can hear her. And then, you know, we do our stuff and I can think. So I said, okay. Small classroom it is.
Was this surprising, especially because this is your performer child, the spotlight, the energy? Were you not expecting the quiet as the answer because of that?
No, I was not, because I figured she thrives on chaos, right? She's always running around and buzzing around, and I was shocked to hear that she really liked the quietness. And so I said, okay, well, let's try it. And I mean, the fact that she loved it made the transition so much easier, because if she's happy going to school, well, this is a huge change, right? We've had 2 years of crying every single day to, Mommy, I love it. I was like, okay, that sounds good to me.
Can you tell me more about the change you saw take place in your daughter in those first weeks and months?
So, I mean, I never heard, first of all, there was never a fight in the morning, which was our typical 2-year, every single day was, she knew she was going to school, so she'd be mad, and she would take that on me first thing in the morning. So we were fighting and struggling. And that just never happened again. She would get up, get ready by herself, come running down the stairs. I'm ready to go to school. She was excited to go to school, which is essentially the only really priority that I had for me, was just for her to have a love of learning. I knew the catching up would come as long as she was interested in being there. So, I mean, that was a big win for all of us, including me, because I mean, the heartache of seeing my child cry every day was terrible. So I was happy she was happy. And then I saw her so because the school is small, they eat lunch with all the kids. So the JKs and the SKs and the pre-Ks, they're all there as well with the, grade 1, 2s, and 3. And so Melania took on a leadership role, helping the little ones. And, if someone new came to the school, she would always be the first one to jump in and try to make them feel comfortable and to help them fit in. So she really came out of her shell as a little girl, as a student, as a leader.
Tell me about, there's two sides to all these kids. There's the student and the person who's growing.
That's right.
Can you tell me about what you might have witnessed on this front? For her, was it a transformation on both the academic and the personal side?
So it definitely on the academic side. I mean, that came slowly, of course. She was fairly behind, but her self-esteem. Like, I went to her first Christmas concert, and I had no idea that she was literally in almost every scene, because she either volunteered to do this or she was in recorder and ukulele, and then she sang. And I was like, wow, like, who is this kid? Because before, she was so scared to go perform in front of everybody, and now here she is. She was like taking the bull by the horn, so to speak. So I just saw a big change in her self-esteem, as I think she felt seen for once. She felt like she meant something in the classroom, so she enjoyed having that empowerment.
You were talking earlier about, the kid who doesn't love learning naturally ends up on the sidelines. And here your revelation was, wow, she's in everything.
She's in everything. And she went from, crying to like loving school and wanting to do everything extracurricular and, extra music lessons and all this stuff, where before it was like, a struggle. Just if I even suggested her doing something, it was dragging her feet to go do it, wasn't happy doing it. And now, it completely changed her, I have to say. It really did. And then I think my biggest surprise, or my happiest surprise, I think, was when I saw her come home and go sit down at the table and pull out her schoolwork and just start doing it. And that for me was like, whoa. Because before it would be, come on, stay with me, we have to do this work. And it'd be crying and fighting and, and I'm a teacher. So, but I mean, it's a real struggle between parent and child when it comes to educating, right? So I was confused because I didn't understand how I couldn't help her. But it wasn't that I needed to help her. She needed to learn how to self-regulate. She needed to learn these responsibilities that come with learning at her own pace and at her own level. And I think it just flourished naturally for her once she had that opportunity at Kingsley.
Rommy, we talked a bit about the classroom size, but I'm wondering if you could help me drill down into more detail about what actually happens in the classroom, about the approach to education at Kingsley that supported this transformation we've been talking about in your daughter.
Okay. So the classroom size it's smaller. So there's, the kids kind of sit in like a table around each other as opposed to in rows. So they're always, talking with each other, helping each other. It's always very much a group discussion as opposed to a question being asked and one person answering. It's like, there's more opportunity for group discussions. And, they have like centers set out. So like when they do science in one center and they all work on the same science project together. And then they kind of move around for different subjects. And I mean, it's that her teacher in grade 3 was amazing. So she was also very loving, and because they understood how much anxiety she had, they were very understanding to, who she was, and they really helped foster sort of an environment where she felt at home. They were like like second moms to her, essentially, which was kind of really nice because it made her feel better, which made me feel better as a mom.
Now, your younger son as well is going into senior kindergarten, and every kid is so different. I'm wondering, how did Kingsley, what does King happens at Kingsley to meet the needs of both your kids, and how are those needs different?
Okay, so Milan started there in pre-K, and I was only going to leave him. I was only going to do the pre-K for the 1 year, and then I was going to put him in like a different school. I figured for JK and SK, and then we loved he just loved it so much there that I couldn't move him out. I was like, okay, you're going to stay. So he, again, small classroom size, so he's always an important person in the classroom, right? As opposed to 30 kids in a normal JK classroom, which, is it changes the whole dynamic of the classroom, because at that age, they're like bossing each other around and they're just learning different things. Where here it's just more focused on the learning, and it's easy to correct and redirect, a small group of children, and to always try to keep them, occupied and sort of entertained while moving through, they have different learning centers. So his classroom is much different than Melania's, because his classroom is a pre-K, JK classroom. And so, it's got all these interesting stations, from the water station, the sand, the blocks. So he's allowed to move around, and he sort of does his thing. And whatever he likes, he kind of engages more in, and then they kind of move them along, and it keeps him engaged. And so he's learning, but he's playing sometimes, like it's different because at the time he was 3 when he started. So now he's 5.
It's been 2 years now that your family's been with Kingsley.
Mm-hmm.
What have you learned about the culture and values at the school over this time?
So I think the overall culture of the school is that, the kids, the kids and their learning come first. They foster really a community between everybody, including the older grades from the younger grades. They all work together. They have like Project Fridays where the whole school works together to do one project, and so it really builds them up as people, as students that are helping other students sometimes, and it kind of gives them that the unity that makes them all feel safe. And there's no, if someone gets hurt, or someone does something that they shouldn't be doing, they're always like, okay, it's okay, they teach each other the right way to do it, but they almost hold each other accountable, which is really sweet, because they're kids. And then at the same time, the teachers are amazing. So the culture of the school itself, as far as the educators, they understand that they're still children, right? So there's emotional days, there's days off that they have, that they're not being themselves, and they know how to handle it. Then they give them their time, and they figure it out, so that everybody always leaves happy at the end of the day, which is great.
I'm curious, as an educator yourself, like of course you teach high school, but as an educator yourself, is there anything that that your family has experienced at Kingsley that has inspired your own approach to education?
Yes, absolutely. For me, I think I realized that, with the way that they do a lot of, like, I think the fact that they work together so well as a big community is, I feel like it brings everybody together, and it makes for a much better learning environment if everybody's sort of working towards the same goals, the same, they all want each other to do well. They give each other little letters throughout, like every week. They have to put like a really nice thought and put it into each other's, they have like these little things pinned up on the wall. And so Melania would come home with all these beautiful notes from her school friends that said, you're so wonderful, you're so nice, you're so helpful, all these things, which I think was really great for her to build up her self-esteem. It was nice to know that her friends, shared these these views of her that may, you know, otherwise you wouldn't have the opportunity to know these things, right? Because it's not something that people walk around saying all the time. So, and I realized how important that part of community is, even in high school. You know, everybody wants to feel like they belong. So that definitely, I think, was a nice takeaway for me from learning, you know, how they approach that stuff. And I learn all the time from them. They use a lot of different strategies to teach the kids about bullying, to teach the kids about, you know, just being good citizens.
Over these past couple of years that your family has been at Kingsley, is there anything in particular that you've observed the school working to improve, or something new they're trying perhaps?
I mean, other than they've been working on building like their outdoor play space, because they had just moved. So when we started there, they had just moved to this new location. So they didn't have everything set and ready to go. And they were building, they wanted to build this big backyard structure and playground for the kids to have, that's private for them. So, I mean, I know they were working towards that, and then they're always working to get, you know, newer and, I guess, like, you know, nicer equipment, you know, like the usual upgrades that need to happen every few years just from wear and tear and stuff like that. And I think the Kingsley community, as parents, they do a lot to help the school in that department too, with donations and stuff like that. So it's nice.
In a perfect world, is there anything that you would love to see the school work to improve?
I don't know. I can't, I truly, right now, I can't think of, like, academically, I can't really think of anything in particular. You know, I think they do what they, you know, what needs to be done. I can't think of anything that needs to be extra right now. Not really.
If I were to wave my magic wand and make you the headmaster, if you were in charge of this place and you had to plan the next 5 to 10 years,
Okay.
tell me, number one, tell me a strength that you would double down on, and number two, tell me something new you would try.
A strength, for as far as the educators, or,
you know, you're in charge of the school, so like, what's the school good at, and where, you know, where's the areas of strength that they should continue to invest in?
I think the community, working together as a community for the school, I think is brilliant, because I think it helps the kids so much, on so many other skills that are not necessarily quantifiable in a test. You know, these are lessons that are much greater than just, you know, rhyming off the alphabet and, you know, numbers. This is about learning core values. It's about learning how to work with others. Like, these are all real skills that these children will need to have in the real workplace. And I think that them learning to work together as a team and relying on each other for things and holding each other accountable, I think that community feeling is probably what makes it stand out the most. So I would definitely continue to push that as the core value.
And, you know, if we were to think big and something that you would work to introduce or improve, or just something different to try, is there anything that you would have on that front in a perfect world?
Something different to try. Yeah, I don't know what I would say as far as, I mean, okay, for the JKs, the little ones, you know, sometimes you feel like they have a lot of free time, which I know is part of their, you know, their not that they have free time, but you just, I don't know, I guess as parents you're always worried, are they getting everything that they need to get, right? So I don't know, but I don't know what I would really change, because and anything I've ever doubted has always come out fine, you know, like every concern I ever thought going along, thinking, oh, you know, is he learning his alphabet in time, and all the normal things that, you know, we go crazy, driving ourselves crazy about, then it ends up being fine. So I don't know what I would necessarily change. I mean, it's, they follow the Ontario curriculum, so there's nothing, you know, there's nothing that's really lacking.
Well, look, let me ask you this then. Do you often find yourself in a position where other parents are asking you about Kingsley?
All the time.
And what do they ask about?
Um, a lot of parents always jump to the academic. I think that for them, academic is, you know, a big issue, because I think when you feel like your child's behind, you panic, right? So I get a lot of questions about academics, and yeah, and then just, you know, and I think the school aesthetics, a lot of people get caught up in that stuff as well.
The physical setting.
Mm-hmm.
What are the common themes around that?
Well, Kingsley's, like, it's in the front part is like a church building, and in the back is the school. So um, I guess people maybe you know, people want to see this new brilliant building built of, you know, of a school that's just, you know, beautiful and um, you know, brand new. And it's not, it's an older building. But for me, the walls really don't mean much, because it's what fills the rooms, right? So I know this as an educator that really the walls mean nothing. I mean, as long as the place is hygienic and everything's clean and the kids are fine, there's, you know, there's no issues. So I don't get caught up in the fancy new buildings and the new fancy schools. For me, it was just about a loving environment for my kids. So that's what I always say. It's not fancy. If that's what you're looking for, it's not fancy. It's just a, you know, it's just a place that's very loving for your kids.
Any final words of wisdom for those parents going through that big decision-making process?
Yeah. I mean, I believe that as a parent, changing schools and finding the right school is an important decision to make. It's a hard decision for parents to make. And I think, you know, oftentimes you overthink it sometimes, or you know, you're scared to make the jump. But for me, this was probably one of the best decisions that I made. I was, you know, originally concerned obviously about the financial part of it, and, you know, my daughter switching school. So, you know, but for me, it was like worth every penny. And I can't thank them enough, truthfully. For myself, my daughter changed so much in so many positive ways that, you know, I'm very grateful to them.